The space around Kepler system looked like a frozen battlefield. Two massive fleets faced each other across the dark void, their ships glowing like angry stars in the darkness. For 6 long months they had been locked in this deadly dance, neither side willing to back down. Admiral Taemin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Sovereign's Pride. The ship was huge, stretching nearly 2 miles from bow to stern. Around it, 300 other vessels waited in perfect formation. Some were battleships with guns big enough to crack a moon. Others were carriers filled with thousands of fighter craft. All of them belonged to the Hegemony Alliance, a group of 12 different alien species that had banded together for war. Across the void, Commander He-Jin watched from her own flagship, the Dark Harvest. Her ship was just as large but built differently. Where the Hegemony ships were white and gold, hers were black and silver. The Void Collective had fewer ships, but each one was deadlier. They had spent centuries perfecting the art of war. Both commanders knew this battle would decide the fate of the Kepler system. The planets here had rare metals that could power ships for 1,000 years. Whoever controlled them would control this part of the galaxy. That's why neither side could retreat. Status report, Admiral Taemin said to his tactical officer. All ships ready, sir. Enemy fleet maintains position at 12,000 kilometers. No movement detected. Taemin nodded. It was the same report he had heard every day for months. Both fleets were so evenly matched that any attack would result in massive losses for both sides. So they waited, hoping the other would make a mistake. Commander Hyojin was thinking the same thing on her bridge. Any changes in their formation? She asked. Negative, Commander. They're as stubborn as we are. A young officer spoke up nervously. Commander, my sensors are picking up something strange. Hyojin turned to look at him. Define strange. There's an energy reading coming from outside the system. It's huge, ma'am. Bigger than anything I've ever seen. At that exact moment on the bridge of the Sovereign's Pride, Admiral Taemin's sensor officer reported the same thing. Sir, I'm reading a massive energy signature approaching from deep space. Sir, it's off the scale. Both bridge crews fell silent. In space, when your sensors detected something that big, it usually meant one of two things. Either it was a natural phenomenon like a solar flare, or it was the biggest warship anyone had ever built. The energy signature grew stronger. Fighter pilots from both fleets stopped their patrols and stared at their displays. Gunners abandoned their targeting systems. Even the automated defense system seemed to pause, as if waiting to see what would emerge from the darkness. Then the communications started failing. Not jamming, not interference. The quantum communication networks that connected every ship in both fleets simply went quiet. It was as if space itself was holding its breath. Sir, whispered Taemin's communications officer, all channels have gone silent. I'm not receiving any transmissions from anywhere in the galaxy. Commander Hyojin heard the same report on her bridge. For the first time in months, the constant chatter of war had stopped. The silence was more frightening than any battle cry. That's when they saw it. From the empty space between the stars came a ship unlike anything either fleet had ever encountered. It wasn't as large as their biggest battleships, but size didn't matter. The ship radiated power like a small sun. Its hull was dark gray, scarred by countless battles, yet it moved through space with a grace that defied physics. The human warship Defiant Thunder had arrived. On its bridge, Captain Dongwu studied the tactical display with calm eyes. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. Lieutenant Subin, his tactical officer, was already analyzing both alien fleets. Commander Jaeho, the chief engineer, monitored power levels that would have fried the systems of any alien ship. Lieutenant Minseo at communications listened to the sudden silence that had fallen across the battlefield. 2 fleets, approximately 600 ships total, Subin reported. They appeared to be in a standoff formation. Power signatures? Dongwu asked. Primitive fusion reactors, magnetic acceleration weapons, basic energy shields, standard galactic technology, roughly equivalent to our systems from 50 years ago. Dongwu nodded. It was what he had expected. Humans had been in space for less than 2 centuries, but they had advanced faster than any species in recorded galactic history. What took other races millennia to develop, humans achieved in decades. Distance to nearest vessels? 8,000 kilometers in closing, sir. Reduce speed to 1/4. We don't want to alarm them unnecessarily. On both alien flagships, panic was starting to set in. Admiral Taman's tactical officer was running every scan he could think of. "Sir, I can't get a proper reading on that ship. It's like it's absorbing our sensor beams." "What do you mean absorbing? The scanning energy isn't bouncing back. It's just disappearing into their hull." Commander Hyojin was getting similar reports. "Stealth technology?" she asked. "No, ma'am. This is something else. Their hull seems to be made of materials we've never encountered." Both commanders were experienced warriors. They had fought pirates, rebels, and each other for decades. But looking at this lone ship approaching their combined fleets, they felt something they hadn't experienced in years: fear. The defiant thunder continued its approach, making no aggressive moves but radiating an aura of barely contained power. Its weapons were not targeted at either fleet, yet every alien sensor operator could tell they were ready to fire at a moment's notice. Captain Dongwu studied the formation of the alien fleets with professional interest. "Classic standoff positioning," he observed. "They're evenly matched, so neither wants to make the first move." "Should we contact them, sir?" Lieutenant Minseo asked. "Not yet. Let them get used to our presence first. Fear makes beings do stupid things, and I'd prefer to avoid unnecessary bloodshed." As the human warship took position between the two fleets, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. For the first time in centuries, the ancient war between the Hegemony Alliance and the Void Collective had stopped. Not because of treaties or negotiations, but because something far more powerful had entered their battlefield. The silence stretched across space, broken only by the hum of engines and the rapid breathing of thousands of alien warriors who suddenly realized they might be facing something beyond their understanding. The galaxy had indeed stopped, and it was waiting to see what humanity would do next. The quantum communication networks came back online slowly, like a nervous animal testing the air after a predator has passed. Admiral Taman's hands shook slightly as he opened a priority channel to Hegemony High Command. He had been a warrior for 40 years, but he had never felt this kind of dread. "High Command, this is Admiral Taman. We have a situation." The response came back immediately. "Admiral, we're already aware." Every monitoring station in this sector detected that energy signature. "What exactly are you facing?" "A single warship, sir. Human design. It just appeared between our fleets." There was a long pause on the other end of the communication. When the voice returned, it sounded older, more tired. "Admiral, you're being sent classified intelligence files immediately. Read them carefully. Your life and the lives of your crews may depend on it." Commander Hyojin was having a similar conversation with the Void Collective High Command. The response from her superiors was even more direct. "Do not, under any circumstances, engage that vessel. We're sending you everything we know about human military capabilities." Within minutes, both flagships were downloading files marked with the highest security classifications. As the data streamed in, junior officers on both bridges began to understand why their commanders looked so pale. Lieutenant Subin on the human ship was reviewing similar files, though from a very different perspective. "Captain, intelligence reports that both fleets are receiving briefings on our capabilities." "Good," Captain Dongwu replied. "Fear born from ignorance leads to poor decisions. Fear based on knowledge leads to wisdom." The files that both alien fleets were reading told a story that had become legend across the galaxy in just 5 short years. When humans first made contact with galactic civilization, they were dismissed as another primitive species from the outer rim. The established powers saw them as potential slaves, resources to be exploited, or at best junior partners in existing alliances. The Krex Empire had been the first to test humanity's resolve. They were an ancient race, masters of space warfare for over 3,000 years. Their armada of 1,000 ships had swept across entire sectors, conquering everything in their path. When they discovered Earth's outer colonies, they saw easy prey. The war lasted 6 months. When it ended, the Krex homeworld was a glowing crater, and their mighty armada existed only as floating debris. The few Krex survivors spoke of human ships that moved impossibly fast, weapons that could crack planets, and tactics that turned their greatest strengths against them. Admiral Taman read the tactical reports with growing horror. The humans hadn't just won the war, they had made it look easy. Krex battleships that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia were destroyed by human vessels half their size. The famous Krex battle formations, studied in military academies across known space, had been shredded like paper. Commander Hyojin was reading about the Zephyrian Federation's attempt at diplomacy. The Federation was known for their cunning, their ability to manipulate other species into fighting their battles for them. They had approached humanity with offers of alliance promising to share technology and resources. The humans had agreed, but with conditions. They wanted to study Federation technology, learn their diplomatic methods, understand their social structures. The Federation leaders thought they were educating useful tools. They discovered too late that humans learned faster than any species in recorded history. Within 2 years, human diplomats were outmaneuvering Federation negotiators with their own techniques. Human scientists were improving Federation technology beyond recognition. Human military advisors were teaching other species how to resist Federation manipulation. The breaking point came when the Federation tried to use humans as expendable shock troops in a border conflict. The human response was swift and absolute. Federation capital cities became lakes of glass. Their parliament buildings were reduced to radioactive ruins. The survivors now governed from underground bunkers, afraid to show their faces under open sky. On the bridge of the Defiant Thunder, Commander J-Ho was running routine diagnostics on their weapon systems. The energy readings would have powered entire planets on most alien worlds. To him, it was just another day at the office. Power core running at optimal efficiency, he reported. All weapon systems green. Shields at maximum capacity. Thank you, Commander, Captain Dongwu replied. Maintain current power levels. No need to show off. The files being read by both alien fleets contained dozens of similar stories. The Spiral Confederation had tried economic warfare, cutting off human trade routes and imposing sanctions. They learned that humans didn't rely on trade the way other species did. When humans needed something, they took it. Their idea of debt collection involved orbital bombardments. The merchant guilds had attempted to manipulate currency exchanges and resource prices. Human economists had crashed their entire financial system in 3 days, using techniques so advanced that guild mathematicians still couldn't understand how it had been done. Every major power that had challenged humanity told the same story. The humans didn't fight like other species. They didn't follow the established rules of warfare. They improvised, adapted, and overcame with a speed and creativity that was terrifying to observe. But the most frightening aspect of human military doctrine wasn't their technology or tactics. It was their restraint. In every conflict, humans could have completely annihilated their enemies. They chose not to. They left survivors, allowed surrenders, and offered mercy to those who yielded quickly enough. This restraint wasn't weakness. It was the confidence of a predator so powerful that it could afford to be merciful. The galaxy's military leaders understood the message. If humans were willing to show mercy to their enemies, what would they do to species that proved useful as allies? Admiral Taman closed the files and looked at his tactical display. The human ship sat motionless between his fleet and the Void Collective, making no threatening moves yet radiating power like a barely contained sun. Around him, his officers waited for orders that he was afraid to give. Commander Hyejin was facing the same dilemma. Her superiors had been clear. Do not engage. But she commanded 300 ships and 50,000 warriors. How could she order a retreat without a single shot being fired? On the human bridge, Lieutenant Minseo monitored the alien communications with professional interest. Sir, both fleets are receiving detailed briefings on our military history. Stress levels among their crews are rising significantly. That's unfortunate but necessary, Captain Dongwu replied. Better they understand the situation than force us to demonstrate it. The tactical display showed both alien fleets maintaining their positions, but their formations had subtly changed. Ships that had been arranged for attack were now positioned for rapid retreat. Weapons that had been aimed at each other were powering down. Fighter squadrons that had been on patrol were returning to their carriers. The galaxy had not only stopped when the human warship arrived, it had remembered that there were worse things than ancient enemies. There were forces in the universe that could end all their wars permanently, and one of them was sitting between their fleets, waiting patiently to see what they would do next. Captain Dongwu looked at the chronometer on his console. The two alien fleets had been staring at each other and at his ship for over an hour. He had given them time to receive their intelligence briefings and understand the situation. Now it was time to move things along. Lieutenant Minseo, open a channel to both fleets simultaneously. Channel open, sir. Dongwu's voice carried across space to hundreds of alien ships. It was calm, professional, and completely without emotion. "This is Captain Dongwu of the human vessel Defiant Thunder. You have 30 minutes to withdraw from this system. Both of you." The silence that followed was deafening. On the bridge of the Sovereign's Pride, Admiral Taemin felt his blood pressure spike. 30 minutes? To abandon a strategic position they had held for 6 months? To retreat from territory that 12 allied species had sworn to defend? "Sir," his communications officer whispered. "Should we respond?" Taemin activated his transmitter with shaking hands. "Human vessel, this is Admiral Taemin of the Hegemony Alliance. This system is under our protection by ancient treaty. We have legal claim to these territories signed in the blood of our ancestors. Our honor will not permit retreat." Commander He-jin's response came immediately after. "Captain Dongwu, this is Commander Hae-jin of the Void Collective. My people have died for this system. Our resources are committed, our positions are secured. We cannot simply abandon what we have fought to achieve." Captain Dongwu listened to both responses with the patience of someone who had heard identical arguments dozens of times before. On his tactical display, Lieutenant Subin was updating threat assessments and target priorities with mechanical efficiency. "Captain," Subin reported quietly, "both fleets are maintaining combat readiness. Approximately 600 vessels total. Estimated time to disable all hostile forces. 12 minutes assuming standard engagement protocols." "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Dongwu replied. "Continue monitoring." On the bridge of the Dark Harvest, Commander Hae-jin was receiving updates from her intelligence officer. "Ma'am, I've been analyzing human intervention patterns across the galaxy. In the last year alone, they've ended 7 major conflicts, Murray. How? By making the same demand, ma'am. Withdrawal in 30 minutes, or they demonstrate why withdrawal is preferable to resistance." Hae-jin studied the tactical display showing the lone human ship positioned between 2 massive fleets. "And if the combatants refuse?" "According to the reports, no one has ever lasted longer than 15 minutes in active combat with a human warship." Admiral Taemin was receiving similar updates from his own staff. His tactical analyst, Captain So-young, had been studying every available record of human military actions. Her report was not encouraging. "Sir, humans don't engage in traditional fleet combat. They don't fight fair. They don't follow established rules of engagement, and they don't accept surrender once hostilities begin." "What do you mean?" "They end conflicts, sir. Completely. When humans decide a war is over, it's over. The only choice left is how many people die before everyone else accepts that fact." Lieutenant Min Seo on the human bridge was monitoring communications between ships in both alien fleets. "Sir, there's significant discussion among their junior officers about immediate withdrawal. However, both fleet commanders are under pressure from their home governments to maintain position." "Politics," Dongwu sighed. "The galaxy's most persistent disease. How much time remaining?" 22 minutes, sir." Across the battlefield, individual ship captains were making their own calculations. Many had read the intelligence files. They knew what human weapons could do to ships like theirs. Some were quietly preparing their vessels for emergency jumps to hyperspace, regardless of their orders. Admiral Taemin received a priority transmission from Hegemony High Command. "Admiral, you are ordered to hold position and demonstrate alliance strength. We cannot appear weak before our enemies or our allies." Commander Hae-jin received similar orders from the Void Collective. "Commander, retreat without combat would be seen as cowardice. The honor of our people is at stake." Both commanders found themselves trapped between impossible choices. Their governments demanded they show strength. But every military analysis suggested that engaging the human vessel would result in the complete destruction of their fleets. On some of the alien ships, junior officers were beginning to express doubts openly. Sub-Commander Kyung-ho on Hae-jin's flagship spoke carefully. "Commander, perhaps we should consider the human request. Our mission is to secure this system, not to engage in unnecessary combat with a neutral party." Captain So-young on Admiral Taemin's ship was more direct. "Sir, with respect, honor means nothing if we're all dead. The humans aren't asking us to surrender to our enemies. They're asking us to leave. And go where?" Taemin demanded. "This system contains resources our people need to survive. The galaxy is full of systems, sir. This one isn't worth the lives of 300,000 crew members." As the deadline approached, Captain Dongwu reviewed the tactical situation one more time. The alien fleets were showing signs of stress, but neither was backing down. Their formations remained aggressive, weapons remained powered, and their communications suggested they intended to fight. "15 minutes remaining," Lieutenant Mincio reported. "Commander J-Ho, what's our power status?" "All systems optimal, sir. We could maintain full combat operations for 72 hours without strain." "Subin, final assessment?" "Both fleets are committed to holding position, sir. Probability of voluntary withdrawal less than 5%. Dongwu nodded slowly. He had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but he had been in similar situations before. The galaxy was full of species that confused stubbornness with courage, politics with strategy, and pride with wisdom. "Attention all stations," he announced to his crew. "Prepare for combat demonstration. Standard protocols: disable, don't destroy. We want survivors to spread the word about what they witnessed." "Aye, sir," came the responses from around the bridge. With 10 minutes left on the deadline, both alien fleets received their final orders from home. "Hold position. Show strength. Do not retreat under any circumstances." Admiral Taimin and Commander Haye Jin looked at their displays and saw death approaching in the form of a single human warship. They had been given orders they couldn't follow and couldn't disobey. In a few minutes, they would discover why the galaxy had learned to fear the sound of human engines in the darkness. Captain Dongwu watched the chronometer count down the final seconds. He felt no anger toward the alien commanders, no satisfaction at the coming demonstration of power. They were simply beings trapped by their own politics and pride, about to learn a lesson that hundreds of other species had learned before them. "Time," Lieutenant Minseo announced quietly. "Begin demonstration," Captain Dongwu ordered. The galaxy was about to remember why it had stopped when humanity entered the war zone. The defiant thunder moved like death itself across the battlefield. One moment it hung motionless between the two alien fleets. The next it was accelerating toward the center of the conflict zone at speeds that should have been impossible for a ship of its size. Admiral Taimin watched his tactical display in horror as the human vessel covered 12,000 kilometers in seconds. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Nothing that large can accelerate at those rates." His science officer was frantically checking readings. "Sir, they're pulling over 40 gravities. Any crew should be dead from the acceleration alone. Unless they have gravity compensation technology far beyond ours," Captain So Young replied grimly. The human ship didn't just move fast, it moved with precision that violated every principle of capital ship combat. It turned and twisted through space like a fighter craft, its massive bulk dancing between the formations of both fleets with impossible grace. Commander Haye Jin gripped her command chair as the human warship passed within 200 meters of her flagship. The Dark Harvest shook from gravitational effects alone. "How are they doing this?" she demanded. Her engineering officer was staring at his displays in disbelief. "Commander, they're using some kind of inertial manipulation system. They're not fighting gravity. They're controlling it." Lieutenant Subin on the human bridge was calmly calling out targets as they passed through the alien formations. "Forward batteries have lock on the Hegemony flagship's main weapons array. Starboard weapons tracking 3 Void collective heavy cruisers. All systems ready for precision strikes." "Acknowledged," Captain Dongwu replied. "Remember, we want to disable, not destroy. These people need to go home and tell others what they saw." The first demonstration of human weaponry came as the defiant thunder aligned itself with Admiral Taimin's flagship. A single beam of coherent energy lanced out from the human ship, striking the Sovereign's Pride's main gun turret. The massive weapon complex simply vanished, vaporized so completely that there wasn't even debris. "Primary weapons offline," Taimin's damage control officer reported in a shaking voice. "No casualties reported. The beam cut through our armor like it wasn't there, but it only destroyed the weapon systems." The human ship was already moving to its next target. Commander Haye Jin watched in fascination and terror as her own flagship came under attack. The human weapon struck their shield generators with surgical precision. The shields that had protected them from 6 months of enemy fire collapsed in an instant. "Shields down," reported her tactical officer. "But sir, they could have hit our reactor core just as easily. They chose not to." This realization was spreading through both fleets. The humans weren't trying to kill them. They were demonstrating their ability to kill them whenever they chose. It was more terrifying than any direct attack could have been. The defiant thunder moved through the combined fleets like a shark among minnows. Its weapons fired with mathematical precision, each shot destroying exactly what the humans intended and nothing more. Main gun batteries vanished. Shield generators exploded, Fighter bay doors were welded shut. Command and control systems went offline. Commander J-Ho monitored their power output from the human engineering section. "We're operating at 30% efficiency," he reported to his staff. "No need to strain our systems for this demonstration." One of his junior engineers looked puzzled. "Sir, if we're only using 30% power, what would full power look like?" "The complete annihilation of both fleets in approximately 90 seconds," J-Ho replied matter-of-factly. "We're trying to make a point, not commit genocide." The demonstration continued for exactly 12 minutes. In that time, the Defiant Thunder systematically disabled the primary weapons of 50 capital ships, destroyed the entire fighter screen of both fleets, and eliminated the shield generators of every major vessel in the battle zone. The human ship's artificial intelligence, with the dry humor typical of human AI systems, began broadcasting running commentary on the tactical failures it was observing. The transmission was sent on open channels so that military academies across human space could use it as a training tool. "Note the inefficient spacing of the hegemony formation," the AI commented as it directed weapons fire. "Ships positioned too close together, creating multiple targets for single shots. Classic error from pre-space military doctrine. Observe the Void Collective's reliance on static defense positions," it continued, while disabling another group of vessels. "No adaptation to changing battlefield conditions. Textbook example of rigid tactical thinking." Both Admiral Tae-min and Commander Hai-jin listened to this commentary with growing humiliation. Not only were they being defeated, they were being used as examples of how not to conduct space warfare. The climax of the demonstration came when the Defiant Thunder positioned itself directly between both flagships. Moving at speeds that seemed to mock physics, it unleashed a coordinated barrage that struck both the Sovereign's Pride and the Dark Harvest simultaneously. The beams cut through their hulls with surgical precision, destroying their main computer cores without harming any crew areas. Both flagships went dark, their command systems offline, their captains helpless to control their own vessels. "Emergency power only," reported Taemin's chief engineer. "All tactical systems offline. Life support running on backup power." Commander Hai-jin received similar reports. Her flagship was effectively dead in space, kept alive only by the mercy of the human attackers. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the demonstration ended. The Defiant Thunder returned to its original position between the fleets, its weapons powering down but not offline. It hung in space like a patient predator, waiting to see what the survivors would do. The silence that followed was broken only by emergency transmissions from hundreds of damaged alien vessels. Medical teams were reporting casualties from system overloads and gravitational stress, but remarkably few deaths. The humans had been true to their word. This had been a demonstration, not an execution. Captain Dong-woo opened communications to both fleets one final time. His voice carried the same calm professionalism as before, as if he had just finished a routine training exercise rather than devastated two of the galaxy's most powerful military forces. "Admiral Taemin, Commander Hai-jin, as you can see, your current tactical position is untenable. I repeat my earlier suggestion. Withdrawal from this system would be in everyone's best interests." He paused, allowing his words to sink in before continuing. "I should mention that we have technical specifications for more efficient resource extraction that would make this conflict unnecessary. We also have medical teams standing by to assist with your wounded, and agricultural techniques that could feed your populations without requiring territorial expansion." The message was clear. The war wasn't ending because humanity had chosen sides. It was ending because they had made the war itself obsolete. Admiral Taemin looked at his ruined bridge and made the hardest decision of his military career. "All ships prepare for immediate withdrawal from the Kepler system." Commander Hai-jin came to the same conclusion at the same moment. "Void Collective vessels begin retreat protocols. We're going home." As both fleets began their limping retreat following flight paths suggested by human navigation computers, they left behind more than just a battlefield. They left behind the illusion that they were the most powerful forces in the galaxy. The Defiant Thunder watched them go with patient satisfaction. Another war ended. Another peace imposed through overwhelming strength. Soon Captain Dongwoo would receive orders to move to another sector, Another conflict, another demonstration of why the galaxy had learned to fear and respect the sound of human engines in the darkness. Admiral Taemin sat in his damaged command chair and stared at the tactical display showing his retreating fleet. Half of his ships were running on emergency power. The other half were being towed by vessels that still had functioning engines. In 40 years of military service, he had never felt so completely defeated. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving a data transmission from the human vessel." "More threats?" "No, sir. Technical specifications. Mining equipment designs, agricultural methods, energy production techniques. The data package is enormous." Taemin frowned. "What kind of mining equipment?" Captain So Young, his tactical analyst, had been studying the incoming files. "Sir, these extraction methods are at least 50 years ahead of our current technology. According to these specifications, we could harvest more resources from a single asteroid than we currently get from an entire planet." Commander Hye Jin was receiving the same transmission on her flagship. Her science officer was practically trembling as he read through the data. "Commander, these agricultural techniques could triple our food production. The energy systems could power our homeworld for centuries without depleting a single resource node." "Why are they giving us this?" Hye Jin asked. Her second-in-command, Sub-Commander Kyung-ho, had a theory. "Because they want us to understand that we were fighting over scraps while they had access to the whole feast." On the bridge of the Defiant Thunder, Lieutenant Min Seo was coordinating relief efforts with mechanical efficiency. Medical teams are responding to casualty reports from both fleets. Engineering support is being provided to vessels with critical system failures. Agricultural specialists are preparing consultation packages for both governments. Captain Dongwu nodded approvingly. "Standard post-conflict protocol. Make sure both sides understand that cooperation yields better results than competition." Commander Jae-ho's repair teams were already working on the most critically damaged alien vessels. Human engineering crews moved through the disabled ships like helpful ghosts, fixing life support systems, restoring communications, and ensuring that everyone would make it home safely. The alien crews watched these repairs with a mixture of gratitude and bewilderment. These were the same humans who had just systematically dismantled their fleets. Now they were working around the clock to keep alien crew members alive and comfortable. "I don't understand." "Them," one hegemony engineer muttered to his colleague as human. "Technicians replace their damaged power couplings. They defeat us completely, then help us repair our ships." His colleague watched a human medic treating wounded alien soldiers with the same care he would show his own people. "Maybe that's why they keep winning. They don't see us as enemies to be destroyed. They see us as problems to be solved." Lieutenant Subin was updating the tactical database with observations from the engagement. Both fleets showed standard galactic military doctrine. Predictable formations, conventional tactics, reliance on outdated technology. Threat level, minimal. "Recommendations?" Captain Dongwu asked. "Both species show potential for rapid technological advancement if properly guided. Suggest standard integration protocols, technology sharing, educational exchanges, gradual introduction to Galactic Confederation policies." This was how humanity had been ending conflicts across the galaxy, not through conquest or domination, but through making war itself obsolete. They offered defeated enemies something better than victory. They offered evolution. As the last of the alien fleets prepared to jump to hyperspace, Admiral Taemin made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. He opened a communication channel to the human vessel. "Captain Dongwu, this is Admiral Taemin. I formally request a diplomatic meeting between the Hegemony Alliance and the human government." Commander Hye Jin, monitoring the transmission, quickly added her own request. "The Void Collective also wishes to establish formal relations with humanity." Captain Dongwu smiled slightly. It was the response he had hoped for but hadn't expected so quickly. "Both requests will be forwarded to Earth Diplomatic Corps. I believe you'll find our negotiators more reasonable than our military commanders." What neither alien leader yet understood was that human diplomats were just as formidable as human warriors. They didn't threaten or demand. They simply presented options and allowed other species to choose the path that made the most sense. Within months, both the Hegemony Alliance and the Void Collective would discover that joining the growing human confederation offered them everything they had been fighting for, plus advantages they had never imagined. Trade routes that spanned half the galaxy, technology that made their current equipment look like stone tools, protection from threats they didn't even know existed. The price was simple: no more wars between Confederation members. Disputes would be settled through arbitration, not annihilation. Resources would be shared efficiently rather than hoarded jealously. Ancient grudges would be set aside in favor of mutual prosperity. Lieutenant Mincio received a priority transmission from Earth Command as the alien fleets completed their withdrawal. Sir, new orders from Fleet Command. The Arcturus sector requires diplomatic intervention. 3 species locked in a territorial dispute over asteroid mining rights. Estimated time to resolution? Captain Dongwu asked. Based on previous interventions, approximately 6 hours once we arrive on station. Excellent. Set course for Arcturus. Standard approach. Arrive quietly, assess the situation, offer reasonable alternatives to mutual destruction. As the Defiant Thunder turned toward its next assignment, both Admiral Taemin and Commander Heejin watched it go. The human ship accelerated smoothly into hyperspace, leaving behind a battlefield that would never see combat again. In the months that followed, the Kepler system would become a model of interspecies cooperation. Hegemony mining specialists would work alongside Void Collective engineers, using human technology to extract resources more efficiently than either species could manage alone. The planets that had been prizes to be fought over would become symbols of what could be achieved through collaboration. Other conflicts across the galaxy were ending in similar ways. Ancient enemies were laying down arms not because they had grown tired of war, but because humanity had shown them something better. The galaxy's military academies were rewriting their textbooks. Political leaders were discovering that negotiation yielded better results than threats. Captain Dongwu reviewed the situation reports from across human space as his ship traveled to its next assignment. 17 major conflicts ended in the past month. 23 species had requested membership in the growing Confederation. Resource production was up 40% across all allied systems. Status of galactic peace initiatives? He asked Lieutenant Subin. Ahead of schedule, sir. Current projections suggest galaxy-wide peace within 18 months, assuming current trends continue. Any resistance to human expansion? Minimal, sir. Most species are requesting protection rather than opposing integration. The galaxy had indeed stopped when humanity entered the war zone, but it had started moving again in directions that no one had previously thought possible. Ancient conflicts were ending not in victory or defeat, but in the realization that the conflicts themselves had been unnecessary. Wars that had raged for millennia were becoming footnotes in history books. Species that had been mortal enemies were becoming allies, then friends, then partners in building something larger than any of them could have achieved alone. The Defiant Thunder continued its journey through hyperspace, carrying peace in its wake like a ship carrying wind. Behind it, the galaxy grew a little more civilized, a little more cooperative, a little more human in the best sense of the word. The age of endless war was ending. The age of human-guided peace was just beginning.